Welcome to Chronic Curiosity, where real people have real discussions, unscripted and raw, about anything to everything. If you enjoy the show, we ask that you follow, subscribe to the channels, all those things. Also, if you would like to support the show monetarily, you can do so by going to the website chronic-curiosity.com. At the bottom of the page, you can donate in dollars or Bitcoin, or you can go to the shop and purchase some curious merchandise that just happens to be fantastically comfortable. Also, if you'd like to connect with the show, please feel free to shoot us an email, comment on whatever platform you're using, or you can join the forum that is also at chronic-curiosity.com. Interact, ask questions. Let's have some fun. And here we go.
Every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching.
You said every bong you break. I was like, ooh, that's a party foul.
Every single day, every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you. That's all I was going to do, because I'm not going to sing the chorus, because I realized when I started, I was like, I was waiting. I'm going to try to play the song, and I'm going to try to, and I was like, as I learned how to play it, I was like,
I didn't think we were kick you in the nuts before you.
Yeah, I got the chorus. I was like, oh, and that's why Sting was a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, that song, it came to me. Well, I think we'll back up a little bit. Do something a little different. And because typically when it's just us, we just talk shit for, whatever.
No, we're just going to talk focus shit.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of the idea. We're going to spin it together with, it was Austin and Dustin when they were here. They're like, you should just do like these clips of, Chill Champ. It's like, look at these fucks.
Champ and Dave.
Yeah, Champ and Dave. We don't talk about Dave. So we're going to do I figure from now on we can make it a little more focused, because we usually end up talking about like news stuff and different things and ridiculous thrown in there. A little more focused of, look at these facts. So facts.
Look at these facts.
Is it fucks? Is it facts? I don't know.
It's like JFB.
A little bit of both.
What is it? Is it just a friendly brewery? Yeah. Just a family brewery, or something else?
Right. So that's kind of the idea. But that song hit me, and I'll tell you why. It really struck me. But the first, look at these facts we have. Is it up there?
Facts.
So this one, I don't know. I think I sent this to you guys.
Yeah.
So NPR, news organization and whatever. So they put this thing out, and for anybody, this would probably be a decent show for people to watch, or just try to follow along as best you can. I'll try to be whatever at the best I can. But they had on Instagram where it was and they put this picture up, and it's this person singing "Every Breath You Take," and with a karaoke screen in the background with the words on it. And then the picture, there's another guy wearing a mask, or they're both wearing masks. It's a drawn picture, and it said ... could be infecting me. And I remember seeing it.
Could be infecting me.
Yeah. I remember the first time I was like, I think this is maybe the first one right after we had that podcast where I was like, I saw it and I was like, look at these fucks. So this one made the list. But facts, so they sing how to sing karaoke in a pandemic.
I feel like that's every karaoke bar in LA.
So the caption makes it even worse, because they said, make sure everyone's vaccinated and check community spread. check the karaoke bar for cleanliness and ventilation and how often they clean their mics. Keep your mask on. Clear your skin. And then you scroll down. If you scroll down inside the box, there's a couple more good ones in there. But it says, clear your schedule for 2 weeks in case you get sick. The last one, singing outside or at home is safer.
What about the shower? Is that still safe?
Is that still safe? Is it the humidity? But I was like, I couldn't believe that. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is actually like was a reputable, I don't know. I mean, it's National Public Radio.
And
right?
It's 40,000 likes.
Yeah. Which isn't that much for that big of a organization, really. But still, like, what the fuck are these fucks up to? That's all I was like. And then, so what got me was, so that, like, I've had that on my, like, saved on my phone for a while. And I was like, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But then as I'm, like, just getting stuff ready and putting the links up, I'm, like, singing the song in my head, you know? And I'm like, wait a minute, like, I remember those lyrics. Like, that song's kind of fucked up. And have you ever, like, really, like...
Nope.
No? So, the very first verse is, which obviously I just sang, says, every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you. Every single day, every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you.
That sounds like 3 restraining orders filed already.
Yeah. And then the chorus, which I didn't sing because he gets up there. Oh, can't you see you belong to me? It's very, like...
It puts the lotion...
Yeah, it sounds like... And then it's funny because I literally just the other day I had a little bit of time and I was trying to find something like a short movie to watch or something like a documentary or something like that. And then I realized they had Amazon has 1984 on there. And I'm like, and it's funny enough, from 1985 was when it was made. But that book was written in like the 50s or something like that.
I think so.
I was like, that's kind of funny. They made the movie the year after. Like, the book's a lot better. The movie's it's actually not as weird. It's actually much more graphic than I would have expected a movie to be, having it being made in 1985. But it felt very 1984ish to me. Like,
yeah,
Big Brother's watching you. Like, and it kind of made me laugh because I know we so today I have a handful of things that we want to go through, and I don't, going forward in the future, want it to be COVID centric because there's been enough of that. But I realized we've talked about COVID a lot on here, but never really, like, it's always kind of been in passing and like a thing here or there. So I want, like, there's a couple things that I want to, like, bring up. So just kind of like little tidbits for people to kind of look out at. And it just made me laugh as I'm thinking about, you know, news networks and everything going on. And then they're making a post about how to sing in a pandemic. And they choose that song. Out of all the songs, they choose that one.
If you're going to pick another song, what do you think you choose?
Ooh, I didn't thought that far.
You didn't thought that far?
I haven't thought that far. I think I said, did I not put I have?
It's 108.5 proof. It's okay.
No, I just poured it.
I know,
It's
I'm
fine.
just joking.
I'm not very good at thinking about songs like that off the fly. I know you reference quite a few of those.
I was going to say, unless we're like mid-sentence.
Yeah, well, that's
comes to
right.
us.
That's why I wanted to start this episode out with that, because you're a song lover and tying the words in.
I got a serious question though.
Yeah.
Did you wash the mics today?
I wipe them off. Yeah, I scrub them off and
Sweet.
bleach them and hit them with sunlight, and I don't know.
You dust them with ivermectin and
Yeah,
hydroxychloroquine.
we can get into that.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll get as deep in the weeds as you want to go.
Yeah. So that was this. I think this was right around the same time. Everything was kind of like, what the fuck are these fucks still up to? This is kind of that's a good one to start off on, because it's like these are like serious, quote unquote serious journalists doing this.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. We'll get it. We have even more serious journalism to get into. But speaking of, so we're gonna do a little bit of COVID. We're going to get off COVID, and then I have some interesting COVID things because we've passed around some information recently in numbers
Yeah.
that were interesting. We'll get back. But the next one is another COVID one that was a while ago, which got very, very little like news cycle, I thought, for what it was. There's a couple people that talked about it. I know Josh Rogan, who wrote I can't remember his book that he wrote now, but he looked into like basically the originations of COVID and, you know, the Wuhan lab thing and all these different things, and breaking points with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty have talked about this one, but nobody else has mentioned this one that I've seen. So WSU, which is Washington State University,
Yeah.
is to lead a $125 million USAID project to detect emerging viruses. And I know I sent you this. Like, I don't know if you saw some, but I know.
I don't think I saw.
You haven't seen this
no.
one?
No, that's like I was waiting to scroll down to see what that's all about.
Oh yeah, no, this is really.
I feel like I have an idea what it's about.
Yeah,
'Cause maybe I
so,
heard about it. Is this the one where they're letting them make other similar viruses?
No, so they're
Okay.
not. The idea for this one isn't to necessarily. That's called gain of function research, Tony.
I try not to say that word.
unless you're Fauci, then did you see? Sorry, sidetracked. Did you see the NIH finally? It was
did.
basically like, yeah, Fauci lied under oath.
Yeah, they need a scapegoat. So
Yeah, and he's still showing up on TV. Like, how long can this guy like
how dare you question science?
questioning Dr. Anthony Fauci
Fauci's
is questioning science.
So-
What an arrogant prick. But yeah, so scroll down a little bit more. It's where was it? It's so the goal is they're being funded by the USAID, which is the United States. Scroll up a little bit more. The abbreviations in there somewhere. Yeah, Agency for International Development. And then you scroll back down, it shows. So the process, they're hoping to collect over 800,000 samples in 5 years, and they're expected to yield 8,000 to 12,000 novel viruses. So what that means is 8,000 to 12,000 viruses that we still aren't aware, essentially, that exist right now. It's kind of what novel means, new, you know, like for the basics of it. So why we just had this whole thing now that we've essentially, even like CNN is, we'll get to them later too, but even all these places that used to say like the lab leak theory was fake news and conspiratorial and racist or whatever. Now everyone's like, yeah, kind of seems like this thing came from a lab in Wuhan. Seems to be the case. So you know what we should do is we should spend about another $125 million, which I think was even more than the Wuhan lab got from us, to find more novel viruses. Because then, you know, what are we going to do with them after that? Obviously something. so
nothing good.
Nothing good. So why don't we do more research and put more money into finding more viruses that we can mess around with?
Yeah. So are they spinning it as we want more information about these viruses so that if anything else like this happened, we could basically get a head start on it? And
right. Which, okay, that sounds pretty good, right? But when it comes out of a lab and it seems, I'm not a scientist, but everything I've seen and everything that keeps coming out seems like it was genetically manipulated in the first place. So we're just spending more money to do the exact same thing we just did, essentially. Let's go find some more viruses that we can experiment on and do research on. And then possibly, you know, it's in order to figure out how they work, that means we have to mess with them, right?
Is there sub funding in there for like a bat breeding program too?
Right? Like,
I like that they're gonna draw on their own strengths in veterinary medicine. Is that like horse dewormer?
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Is
too.
that what?
Yeah,
Is that what they mean
that's
by
on the list,
that?
too.
I feel like that's what they mean by that.
Yeah, but like, how does this make? I get like the
Probably more like zoonotic, jumping from animal to human when they say that.
I don't know what that means,
I
Tony.
do like no, that's what I was saying. It's
Yeah.
those diseases that jump from like the animals to the humans. That's probably why they're looking at the veterinary stuff. But
Right.
you never know. Could be
Right, but
could be the old horse
to
case.
but to say, all right, we've had COVID-19, so what needs to happen is we need to go out and find these novel viruses so we can plan just in case it happens. Well, when you do that, now you're introducing us as humans to these viruses that we have not been introduced to before, and you're putting them in a lab. And in order to do these experiments, you have to figure out how they work. And gain of function is essentially, all right, how could we make this virus be more transmissible to humans so we can figure out how to combat it? Well, that's kind of, it seems like that's, if I had a hypothesis to throw out there, I'll go ahead and say, like, I don't think necessarily it was like I won't go as far to be a conspiratorialist.
You're not on the poster back there.
Yeah, I'm not quite on the Great Awakening poster, but I'm willing to, and I think more than likely what was happening at the Wuhan lab was, all right, we're testing and experimenting on these, viruses to stop a pandemic or to figure out how these things happen so we can prevent things in the future.
And then something happened where it got out.
It accidentally got out. So, like, it's either that or they did it on purpose, which either way, like, maybe we should try to prevent. How do we prevent these things from happening? Well, here's one. How about we stop experimenting on viruses, particularly ones that we're not familiar with, like novel viruses. Even better, let's go dig up 8,000 to 12,000 more and then mess with them. That's probably the best idea. I saw this. I was like,
kind of see your point there.
Yeah,
At first, I'm like, I can kind of see what they're doing, but I mean, if the end result is right back where we're at right now, because that's what they were doing,
or worse,
initially. Or worse, yeah.
Because like you look at, because I've said, I've joked, and I will preface everything else that we're going to say, because going forward, because I want to look at some different numbers and things, in actual like statistical facts and fucks throughout the day.
Facts.
But I've kind of joked that, oh well, this isn't Ebola. Like, if this is Ebola, then all right, maybe I'll take that vaccine. Maybe I'm okay with experimenting with some shit, because, or like if you're watching the movie Outbreak,
yeah,
like, oh, this is like, because that's kind of like it's kind of like Ebola.
Yeah,
and you get it, you start puking,
hemorrhagic.
Yeah,
disease,
you start bleeding out all your orifices, and a few days, a week later, you're dead. Okay, that's concerning. What if all these, it was gain of function research, it came out of the Wuhan lab, it was an accidental slip, get it. But what if it was an accidental slip of Ebola virus that had gotten this gain of function research done to it? That's why Ebola wasn't as deadly as, it's deadly, but it wasn't as transmissible as it was, because it was a natural fucking virus.
Yeah.
But when you're messing with things and playing with things and playing God with this kind of stuff, like, what if it would have been more deadly virus? We look at the cases of how many people have contracted COVID versus how many have died. Like, even if it was a 10% death rate, that's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah.
And I think Ebola is like 30%, or I don't know. I don't know the numbers on it. It's high.
Not good.
It's not good. Yeah. So like, what happens when one of these 8,000 to 12,000 new viruses that we mess around with, we find, and it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, I'm not going to go there. But yeah, I was like, what? This seems like a really, really bad idea.
So then let me ask you this. What do you think they should do with that $125 million? If you're going to direct it towards something that was research-based or going to be beneficial towards collecting more information on these novel, like, how would you use it?
I mean, let's figure out the shit we got going on that's messed up with first. Like, when you look at, and there's some numbers that I want to get into too.
So crop duster of ivermectin.
things that we have enough problems with the human species that if we actually put money into fixing the problems, not like California does with their homeless situation, just propping up everything that's going on, like, and propping up these government agencies and everything else. Like, let's actually, if we want to put money like where our mouth is, like, let's actually try to fix some of these things, not research new ones.
Did you watch or listen to that San Francisco Rogan podcast? The author who wrote that,
Yeah,
San
Bartlow?
Francisco. I don't know.
Wasn't that Bartlow?
I don't know, but it was good. And he had
It's
a
a
lot
really
of good
good
ideas, just talking about homelessness, and it was good. I can't remember what his name was.
He was
but
the
he was the author
environmentalist
of,
guy, right? Is that the guy you're
I don't
talking
know,
about?
he was the author of San Francisco. That was the book that he wrote.
I don't think I listened to that.
I
one.
did listen to that one. It was really good.
It was good.
I
He had a
wanna
lot
say-
of insightful
I thought that was
ideas.
no, Bartlow Elmore was the seed money in Monsanto thing. That was a really good one too. Who was it? Michael Schellenberger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a really good one. You'd like that, Tony. Yeah, the Rogan with Michael Schellenberger was a really good. He talks about.
I did. I listened to the beginning of that. I didn't.
Okay,
Finish
yeah, it was
like
pretty good.
30 minutes or something.
Yeah, he does a really good job of discussing like just the situation that's going on in a lot of places, but how they're not actually putting money and effort into fixing things. They're just putting money and effort into getting more money out of, and they don't really care about the people that they're affecting.
Well, dude, didn't Colin Noir tell Rogan about that initially?
Yeah,
'Cause
I would
Rogan
imagine
was,
that's
like,
probably how they got
shocked.
connected.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I remembered he said that on that
Yeah.
podcast.
Rogan brought that up on the podcast. He actually told him about that Colin Noir told him that. And I think the author that was the guest, I think he didn't necessarily say that money wasn't being used properly, but he said he wasn't surprised by that at all.
Okay.
But he had given ideas that he had discovered from other countries, and they just weren't going anywhere. Like, nobody was
Right.
doing anything about it.
Well, surprise, surprise. That's American politics and everything else that we have going on. Well, it's the same. It goes along with the same threads of, like the drug war and how they're not really trying to fix people. They just throwing them in prison or this, that, whatever. Or, yeah, there's a lot of things that we're doing that looking at the wrong way. But yeah, so look at these facts. Number 2. Let's find more novel viruses to mess up our lives. And like, well, I don't know how anybody could look at this and be like, okay, this is the time to do this. This is a great idea.
Yeah.
But-
Bro, I actually bought myself a pet bat, and I just keep it perched on my shoulder, and I'm building up my immunity
That's
every
not
day.
a bad idea.
Yeah. It's not with me. Don't worry. You're like looking for it.
Yeah.
Is that a bat in your pants or no?
Yeah. Different kind of bat. Yeah. So speaking of American politics, we'll move on to the next one. This is one that we've discussed. I don't think we've discussed it on the show. So
No.
does the IRS really want to spy on your bank accounts? So this is there's a lot of stuff in these new bills that are getting thrown around. I don't know if any of these new, like the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation bill, all these different, I don't know if any of it's going to pass through. But the original proposition was for there to be a change in the laws for banks reporting to the IRS. And originally, so you were talking about how you thought it was just businesses. And originally that's
Okay.
actually in the law now, where it's over a certain amount. If businesses have certain transactions throughout the year, then banks have to keep records and report that to the IRS.
What's the amount currently for personal? Is it like 20,000 or something?
I don't know. I don't know if there is one for personal.
I got you. Because I know deposits, obviously, it's like, 10,000?
Yeah, something like that. So,
But I mean, transactions is probably maybe different.
right. So this one, it was $600, and it was like footed as, well, we need to crack down on these billionaires not getting, not paying their fair share. And it was like, well, if we're talking about the rich and not paying their taxes, $600 in a bank account over an entire year, this doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, you're right. No, you're right. I agree. We'll make it 10,000. It's like, so from everything I know, and as always on this show, please take everything that I say with a grain of salt and go do your own research, because that's the whole idea. Just give you just enough to think. So everything I've read, it's in the proposal that if you have $10,000 in a bank account of transactions within a year, the IRS would need to report, or any bank needs to report that.
Is that a single transaction or like
throughout the year?
So
total.
Cumulatively, if you have $10,000 worth of transactions,
yes,
the bank would have to report that.
Right. And so a lot of these reports they're saying, well, that doesn't involve direct deposit from your employer or government deposits. Okay. People, so it doesn't. So people, like, you read that and you would think, oh, well, it doesn't involve like my paychecks, what I get paid. So it's like extra stuff. No, it's very specifically says direct deposits. So if you make more than, whatever the amount is you make, but if you pay more than $10,000, if there's $10,000 that leaves your bank account in a year, that's withdrawals and transactions. Those aren't deposits.
You mean like a year's worth of mortgage payments?
Right, which is more than likely well over 10.
Yeah.
So if you own a house and you pay your house monthly, guess what? Your transactions would be reported to the IRS. So it's like, and even if it was businesses and it was like this change, like, okay, I get it. Like, but we keep seeing these things come out that's like, oh, we need to do more to make sure the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, pay their fair share. All right. I agree with you there. Like, you shouldn't be making $1 billion a year and not paying any taxes. I mean, if I have to pay taxes, you
just got to get more savvy, Fred.
Right. No, but that's, I don't begrudge the billionaires for that. Because if I was in that boat, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, all right, I am worth, like Elon Musk. He's one of the richest people in the world right now, and he pays very minimal in taxes. You know why? Because he doesn't actually make money, because he spends more than he makes, but then he takes loans out and buys things and all these different things to be able to move his money around. And that's what the rich people do. I get it. I do the same thing. But it's the government that's made the rules. It's the IRS that's put these things into place. So don't pretend like, and then use something like that to go, oh, if you have more than $10,000 of transactions a year, we're going to need to be able to track every single transaction. I mean, we're already getting close to that as it is, but still, like, what the hell's going on? It's those steps, those baby steps.
Sounds like the preparation for the social credit score.
Right. And that's where I start agreeing with some of these conspiracy theorists is, like, yeah, there's might be little things that there might be things that, like, you have to do. It's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's just making sure you're paying your taxes. It's just a mask. It's just this. It's just a safe vaccine, or it's just a whatever it is. But when you see other countries, and we have some more to get into with this as well. When you see the path other countries have gone down, it's, well, yeah, this is that next step. This is that next step. And like we've talked about it, like, I think there's been a lot of people have talked about where if I want to get you to do something you don't want to do, I'm not going to right off the bat go all the way, full tilt. I'm going to push you a little bit. And then as soon as you start resisting, okay, I'll let off a little bit. And then I'm going to push you a little bit more. And then I'll let off a little bit. It's that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Except for things like this, it's...
Quote songs again, bro.
Yeah. Except for this, it's 2 steps backwards. And then, oh, okay, no, we didn't. Well, you're right. We $600. That's silly. You're right. We'll bump it back up to 10,000. And it's like, and then it leaves the new cycle. And it still goes, if it ends up still going through and whatever. But that's a lot of these things that come out and they're so ridiculous. And then everybody pushes back. And then it's, oh, yeah, you're right. We see your guys' concerns. We'll change it. But it's still just as shitty eventually down the road. So that was I know we had talked about that privately. And it was like, I wanted to dig into that to see. So I have no idea how many of those bills are going to go through. Or it's a giant shit show right now. But hopefully none of them, because there's some weird things in there too that like people have been reporting on, and then like the fact checkers are saying like, oh no, well, this isn't entirely true. Well, this isn't a law yet. This is just in a bill. Like the idea of this is like the mileage. Have you heard about that one?
No.
Where one of the ways to make money is they would tax like carbon fuel emission drivers a certain amount for how many miles they drive. So it's encouraged you to reduce your footprint. If you're taxed, say $0.01 a mile. Well, then if you drive, 20,000 miles a year, you have to pay $200 tax on the miles you drove.
I mean, do people really want to drive 20,000 miles a year? Like, they're probably doing it for their job. Like, it's not like someone just says, well, I'm going to go drive.
Well, no, but so then it's like,
and they already reduced the reimbursement rate. It's like 56 cents now. It gradually has gone down.
It's like 55. It dropped.
Again?
No, from last year to this year. Yeah. Yeah. It dropped this year.
I thought it was 56 right now.
I don't know. But either way, people look at that, and on the face, it's this, I guess the whole point I'm trying to make, and I'll make it even clearer as we go on through some of the stuff, is you have to, like, I don't know everything by any means, but if you can't look at an article or a title or a report or anything, and your first thought shouldn't be to just take it at face value and believe it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different ways people can use language. Like we've talked about how many times, being precise with your language, which I am terrible at. I'm trying to get better, but using the words for what they mean. And that's what a lot of these people do really well. But they just they make sure not to use the words that they don't want to use. Like, well, we need a mileage tax to reduce our footprint, to save nature, to reduce carbon emissions, and to,
So how are you going to get the other countries that have way larger of a footprint and don't do shit to get on board with that?
That's not what we're talking about, Tony. We need to do our part as humans of this beautiful planet to reduce our, and if this helps, we can go to electric cars. And
I have a better idea. All the people proposing that die, so you're not wasting the air that I breathe.
But you look at that idea face value and go, yeah, I agree. We probably, I don't think it's going to hurt us to reduce carbon emissions and be greener and reduce waste and pollution. I like all those things. Those are great ideas. But how are they going to track those miles? Why? Doesn't matter if we do all that we can, but places like India that has like 4 times our population, and places like China that has, 5 times our population that don't do any of those things. Does it really affect what we do? Okay, we'll set that aside for now because that's a whole different conversation. But how are they going to track those miles? Oh, well, it's just like an app on your phone or a thing you plug into your car, like a lot of insurance companies now have. Well, you can save money on your insurance, Tony, if you just have one of these, if you have an app on your phone or if you have one of these devices in your car. So that way we know how fast you're driving and how hard you're stopping and how safe of a driver you are, so you can save money. Meanwhile, they're collecting all of your data and everything else, and they know exactly where you are, every step you take, every move you make. They'll be watching.
They'll be watching, yeah.
Time to know it. The next one, this is more of a look at this fact. I don't know how anybody could take Bill de Blasio seriously. He is the goofiest, one of the goofiest fucks. Did you ever see the video of him eating the cheeseburger?
No.
It was like a whole COVID thing where like if you get the vaccine, you get this free cheese. He's like on camera like, "Oh, this burger's so good because I got my vaccine." Like, bro. So he proposed. So he can't technically do it because he's going to be out of office soon. But he proposed to phase out New York City's gifted school programs.
Okay.
So, and once again, it's the language they use. So essentially, his successor is the one that's going to have to enforce it or whatever they're going to do. But he proposed this and he's kind of putting it into motion to where they want to remove all of the gifted programs for students in New York City because can you guess why?
Probably going to be racist.
Because they're racist. That's right. Now, I will agree because the statistics, which I get, and I will agree that statistically, if you are a white family in the United States versus grown up in a black neighborhood or any minority really, you start out at a lesser advantage because of money, all these things. If you have more money, guess what? You're probably going to be able to get into better schools, live in the better areas. I'm not contesting that because I totally agree on that point. But they're erasing this program where you take a test in kindergarten. I think it was in kindergarten where they start. And if you test high enough, you have the ability to go to these more advanced schools. Well, some of these, and the reasons what they're using to back this up is, well, because a lot of these families have more money, these predominantly white and Asian families have more money, they are able to provide their kids with tutors. So these kids score better on these tests. They end up getting into these better schools and gifted programs. Okay, I get that. That makes sense. How all things, work out makes sense. But instead, and this is where I'll offer you my idea, instead of saying, all right, well, we know that historically minorities in these certain areas are at a lesser advantage because they grew up in these red line districts. They grew up in these crappy neighborhoods that, maybe our government system in a sense kind of put them there in a sense. Instead of saying, hey, let's help these people out. Let's give these people, I want to use a different word. We need to find a different word than assistance.
Opportunities.
Maybe opportunities go. Because when you see say assistance, well, giving somebody just a government paycheck, that's not fucking assistance. No. That's just giving them money. Let's look at these areas. Like same could be said for some West Virginia towns and poor, whatever, like these rural areas where they've been historically like mining areas or, manufacturing areas, white, black, whatever it is. There's these areas that just don't have the opportunities to make money. And if you can't make money, you can't move, because a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just move? Well, it's easy to say if you have enough money to pay bills. But if you're scratching by just to feed your fucking family, how are you going to scrape up the money to move your family?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Especially to a better neighborhood. Like
put everything in the wagon like the Clampets, bro.
Right. So instead of saying, hey, let's find programs and actual good ways to help these people out. Let's build community centers and let's try to get,
Yeah, we'll just shut down this other program.
Yeah.
Still doesn't help.
Right. We'll just shut down the advanced programs and then we'll put everybody in the same classes and schools together because they all get equal treatment that way. What kind of asinine shit are we doing here? Like, so now not only are we not helping the people that that we say we're trying to help, now we are disadvantaging the smart, because there's some people that, sorry, you just weren't born super high on the evolutionary ladder. I'm not the top myself, trust me. So but I can recognize that there are people that are much, much, much smarter than me. And there are people that are not as smart as me. But I don't want those people that are much smarter than me being disadvantaged to be brought down to my level. Why would I want that? I wouldn't have, smartphones. Well, then I wouldn't. You need, starving children in third world countries for those too. But, we wouldn't have Elon Musk doing all the things that he's doing and hate him as much as you want. He's doing a lot for technology because as these smart people build these things that get built to build those advanced things help everybody out, so it just kind of blew my mind that they're like you said, we're not, instead of developing ways to help bring the bottom up, we're going to bring the top down. How does that help everybody?
Well, it does say that the system will be replaced by a program that offers possibility of accelerated learning to students in the later years of elementary school. So it's not like they're just getting rid of it and not doing anything to replace it. So you have to bring that to like also what his plan is.
Yeah, but that's the only. It doesn't spell anything out of what's that even mean?
Well,
Offers
it
the possibility of
sounds
accelerated
like
learning to students later.
parents are pulling their kids out of school anyway because of this inconsistency or this lack of opportunity for all of the children.
Yeah, but it's not a lack of opportunity because anybody can take the test. You don't have to pay to take these advanced tests to get like. It's just the opportunity is the same there.
He's saying that his new plan would offer more children would have the opportunity to receive some accelerated learning than under the existing plan.
Right. But what's that mean? So does that mean we're offering some? That's a super vague word there. So that's when you read these things, it's the very specific words they use. So this new plan would offer some advanced accelerated learning because, from what I understand, is now instead of that accelerated teaching being done to the accelerated students, now they're going to offer some accelerated learning to the entire classroom. So then it's all right. Well, we've had the discussion as parents. You know, if there's a kid in a classroom that has a concept down and they fully understand it, but they're doing something as a class, that kid can get bored.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there myself. And some classes, like I said, I just didn't pay attention to. But there are some classes where I was like, I know this. Why?
Yeah, give you something else.
Yeah, so they check out. And then it's, this program is a little more accelerated. Do the backside of this worksheet, Billy. This is accelerated. So they could call that accelerated because it's just a little more complicated. But then...
So you want that spelled out is what you're saying. What
does
that mean?
Yeah, what is that? Well, it would, because it even said it would offer some kids some accelerated learning. What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
There's a lot of somethings in there.
Yeah,
they did say that he's been criticized for not taking forceful action to fulfill his promise in tackling inequality in public schools. But then did you read that it said that the Democratic nominee hasn't commented on it, or he's rejected calls to get rid of the gifted classes?
Right.
But instead favors an expansion of the programs into low-income neighborhoods.
Right. So that's the new guy.
Who would be taking his place isn't completely on board. He looks like he wants to do both.
Right. So I'm not saying that the state of New York, but I'm just saying this is one of the things of look at these fucks. Why? And there was some things that his successor has talked about, or not necessarily. He's kind of avoiding because it's complicated situations. But as a mayor of New York fucking city, it's a pretty big city.
Complicated man that no one can understand.
Yeah. So it's ideas like that there's a quality problem here. So instead of doing our best to lift the people at the bottom up, let's cut the top off. It doesn't make any sense to me. And that's...
Yeah, that sounds like you could have looked down and picked up $1, but you just stepped over it to pick up a dime.
Yeah, it doesn't make... And I guess maybe part of my problem is because I see how much money these politicians make and how many there are. There's every single political office has a handful of people underneath of them too.
Yeah.
What do we need all you motherfuckers for? We got 485 people in the House of Representatives, 100 in the Senate, and all these. What are all you people doing? Because we haven't gotten shit done, ever. Hardly. I love democracy, but at some point, man, we gotta get some shit done, or do nothing and let me do what the fuck I want to do. I don't know.
It feels like some things are getting done now. Not good things though. at an expedited pace.
Right. So, but that was just one of those, like, it kind of brought me back to, I don't remember what episode it was we talked about it, where, you know, lowering the bar just so people can feel better about themselves, giving a participation trophy out, that doesn't help anybody.
No.
You know, it's fun to joke about. And I think Dusty said the whole time, he's like, oh, I set the bar real low and just step over that bitch because it makes life easy. Yeah, but it doesn't like make life necessarily good.
Yeah.
You know, like, so lowering the bar and bringing the top down to the bottom, like, sorry, there's got to be, guess what? There's got to be somebody at the bottom. There's got to be someone at the top. If not, everybody's fucking poor and having a terrible time.
So communism, socialism,
101, right? Right. That's what it boils down to. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next. Let's look at the next fucked. Oh, this is a little different one. So this is the
Oh, I remember this one.
yeah. So Donziger, I think it's what his name is. First name's Steve, not Steve. Just I'm gonna scroll down there. It's not. Yeah, it is Steven Donziger. So for anybody who hasn't heard about this one, this is kind of a fucked up one. So Steven Donziger is a humanitarian lawyer. Was a humanitarian lawyer. And like I said, as always, I don't know all the details. I'm not an expert, but bullet points, go look it up for yourself. Bullet points was, I think he was involved in a case, and he was representing, I want to say, was it Ecuador? I can't remember if it's in there somewhere. Yeah, Ecuador. Yeah. Ecuador. So he was involved in a legal battle against Chevron over rainforest pollution in Ecuador. And essentially during the trial, if I have my facts right, I think it was after the trial. So he won in an Ecuadorian court. And basically the Ecuadorian court said, like, yeah, like Chevron needs to pay billions and billions of dollars. Tried to bring it to the U.S. and this judge in the U.S. case was like, man, no, you only won that course in Ecuador because of bribery and fraud and all these different things. So
we're not the same judge that's being investigated now.
I can't keep them all straight anymore, honestly. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there. That's all right. So
probably talking about Chevron, bro. They shut you down.
Yeah, Chevron shut my ass down. Look at that. It just all went blank. Wow. Okay. Anyways, here it comes back up. So this guy, long story short, went to court against Chevron, and won the case in Ecuador, brought to the United States to try to make Chevron pay this, that, whatever. And the U.S. judge was like, no, you're basically corrupt. And we're going to need all of your electronics. We want your laptop. We want your cell phone. We want everything that you have. This was after the case was done. And he was like, well, no, like, I'm not, like, basically, like, I'm not the one, in this lawsuit right now. I'm just the lawyer, like, and that's client privilege. You can't have this stuff. So then this U.S. judge held him in contempt of court. He was on house arrest for like 2.5 years and just went to prison the other day for another, like, actually had to go to prison for like 6 months. After, like, and I guess, like, from my understanding, this type of punishment has never been brought on in a scenario like this ever.
Wasn't there something to do with that judge though, in particular, that one that sentenced him?
There might have been. I don't, like I said, I don't know the details. It's one of those stories where it's too detailed to get into. But if you want to really
scroll down a little bit, Cass, please.
Oh, it's
when I go over certain ads, it does that.
Fucking Chevron. But it's just interesting that, like, there's a lot of fuckery going on here.
It's all right, Cass.
With this attorney that, like, he wasn't part of the case. It was just he was fighting against Chevron, and now all of a sudden, like, all of these things are happening to him that have never ever historically been done to an attorney like this in the history of the U.S. And it's like, this is getting sketchy. You realize that it's money. Whoever's got the money, that's where it's going to happen. So anybody,
You get the powers.
Yeah, you get the monies. Yeah.
You get the women's.
Yeah, the women. Yeah. So anybody that's listening to this that hates our that look might view us through a lens that it seems to be that we're on the far right.
A myopic view.
Yeah. Any liberals out there listening to this, this should concern you, because this guy was fighting for, the rights of a country, of big corporations destroying the rainforest. And here he is going to prison because he ended up being a lawyer fighting against a big corporation. That's scary. I had the conversation the other day with somebody that, what was it exactly? It was something along the lines of, being upset with the government and, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to do with corporations and whatnot. And I said, you do realize, I said, the story he sent me was like, the story perfectly exemplifies how everybody's upset with the government because the government is the mouthpiece for all the bad things that people want to be upset for. But then you realize, where does that come from? Well, it just comes from these corporations that they're lobbyists and everything else. Like you look at Democrat, was it Kristen Sinema? Like all the things she ran on, that's not her stance anymore. Like tax the rich, all these tax the rich, all these things, and all they get in there, and it's, oh well, I didn't exactly mean tax all the rich people and corporations. We need these people. No, you need these people to stay in office and to make millions of dollars once you get out of office. Like, you realize that the one bad thing I will say that I've realized more and more I dig into it, the one bad thing about capitalism is capitalism figures out how to run governments. How do you have a balance between a dictatorship like China and the communism versus corporations running? Because corporations running the nation that's not a good thing either. When you realize some of the nasty things that these companies do just to make a dime. And it doesn't put us in a very good situation either. Love money is the root of all evil, right? Gonna boil us down to it. But yeah, that's a really interesting case to look into too. Old Donziger. I love that. So look at this fact. National pride is at stake. Russia, China, United States race to build hypersonic weapons.
So not national safety, but national pride.
National pride. This sounds like the race to the moon, except with nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
When I saw that,
rewarded.
Yeah. So it's if you haven't seen, it was a few weeks back. Russia, and this was another story that surprised me. It was so quiet. Russia tested out this hypersonic nuclear warhead capable missile essentially, but the different technology. And it was like, I saw that and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's no good. And then China came out and they tested one a week or so ago.
Was theirs a missile though? Or was there something that was going up into space?
China's, it's like subspace.
Okay.
So, and this was a really interesting article too. We'll get real quick. But then a couple days after that, US was like, oh, we tested one too. And it was like, guys, hold on. Like, why? This is just one of those things where, and if anybody doesn't understand this is an interesting, if you scroll down, that this is why I pulled this one up, because it has a really cool, that's a China missile. Look at that thing. That's nasty looking. Yeah, scroll all the way down. There's that right here. So they had a couple little like things that kind of showed give it a visual effect of what the difference is. So you look at like a normal airplane, it can, fly pretty fast. You look at some of like our fighter jets, they can hit like Mach 3, 4, which is 3 to 4 times the sound, or it's 3 to 4 times the speed of sound, which is pretty damn fast. That's what creates a sonic boom, all those cool things. So, hypersonic, we have cruise missiles, which can hit, upwards of almost 10 times the speed of sound, Mach 10. But then there's these hypersonic glide vehicles that they're developing now, which is like 20 plus times the speed of sound.
Tic Tac?
Yeah, kind of sounds like it, right? So the interesting thing about these is if you scroll down to the next one, There's like a next little table here, which is kind of cool. Oh yeah. So scroll down a little bit more. So I was like, I thought this was really neat. So anybody not seeing this, you have to look at it. And so the general idea is a ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. You know, they kind of shoot it up like a rocket into space. It goes into space and it kind of arcs back down onto its target. That was a technology we, had before. So you can intercept those because it has a very defined path. You can see where it's coming from. Missile defense systems can see it and shoot it down, right? Kind of like Israel's like Iron Dome deal. But the problem with these hypersonic things is they can move at weird,
looks like very erratic fashions.
yeah, well, they kind of like, they can move so fast and they kind of move like off of their own like burst waves that they don't, because they're traveling through atmosphere and stuff, and different than like an ICBM. So, and they move so fast that missile defense systems haven't caught up to that speed yet. So there's no defense for them. So normally, like if you think, and I listened to, have you ever listened to any much of Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast?
No.
Super interesting. So it's like some of them like 5 hours long. So it's like, it's like a documentary, like that you just have to like pause and, but he does a really good job of going through a bunch of different historical stuff. Like he detailed, like what he has one like on, like just talking about like Spartan wars and all these different things. But he talked about basically the nuclear war issue and threats and Cuban Missile Crisis. And listen to that one. It was really interesting. Like when you realize that it's this game of chess in like chicken almost of, well, I have these nukes. Well, they have these nukes. Who's going to use the nukes? Because someone it's like this threat of, I have nukes and we'll use them. So don't mess with us. And the other side's like, oh, they're not going to use their nukes. Well, fuck them up. Like whatever. Like who's going to press that button to start nuclear war and essentially destroy the world? And before we have defenses against them because the technology, we are able to find ways to defend against it. Well, now our technology isn't caught up enough to defend against hypersonic nuclear warhead type platforms. It's like, what? Like we're just like racing to like, do we really need a weapon that can blow up the entire Earth? Like that's what we used to be like. So as the next thing, they just, hey guys, so we drill down into the Earth and we put this fusion bomb down there. So don't mess with us or we'll blow everybody up. Like we'll just blow the Earth into pieces. Is that where we're like, what else? I don't know how much further we could go at this point.
I saw a meme the other day that said, when aliens fly by Earth, they lock their doors. I feel like that fit in pretty good there.
Yeah. Like that's what we're doing. Like we've gone so far to say, all right, you have technology that can blow us up. Well, guess what? We developed technology that can go blow us and you up. Everybody. We're just killing us all. Like, yeah.
What is that idiom about cut off your nose to spite your face?
Right.
I think it's you just cut your whole head off is what it sounds like now.
Yeah. Because I get it. All right. No, we got to develop next. Why we, I don't know. People are people. When everyone's, we're going to fight. But I saw it and I was like, well, this isn't good. It's going nowhere good at all.
Nope.
So, I don't know. We're just going to blow each other up, apparently. But speaking of blowing each other up, we have to track each other first, right? I don't know. This was a story that came out. So Venice to track cell phones and use hundreds of cameras to manage tourist entry. So let's just reread that with, we'll just say a country is going to track cell phones and use hundreds of cameras to manage its people. Kind of sounds like China.
Tourists aren't people. They just want to manage everybody else.
Oh, that's just accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the article
Right.
it says so they can decipher between who's a tourist, who's a civilian, how long these people are here. So essentially these people are putting into place China. How many different stories have you seen where it's in China you're tracked, like if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Or like Korea. I would say North Korea, but I don't think they half the time their electricity isn't even working.
Yeah. Well, bro, you never know when ISIS is going to show up in Virginia. You got to track people.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's, hey, we need to track everybody for your safety. Yeah, that's what Mark Zuckerberg told us too.
Yeah, that's the Patriot Act, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After 9/11, it was like, well, we have to be able to track everyone's phones and be able to read. So, and listen in for your safety. It's your safety. All these things are very 1984-ish, very Orwellian, as they say. Yeah, but I saw this and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they literally, they're tracking cell phones, and they have 468 cameras, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but Venice is not a big place. It was just funny. You see this adoption going on around the world. And like in Australia,
Yeah.
they're tracking people's phones. If you're driving down the road at the wrong time and when you shouldn't be, like, you can go to prison or get fined. Like, what are we doing here, folks?
Dude, so it's like a military state there, basically.
Yeah.
Or a police state.
Yeah. Look at these facts.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. And it's happening everywhere.
Dude, now the animals aren't even the most dangerous. It's the people, I guess.
We're turning into animals, though, I feel like. But yeah, that was just a little short one. I was like, oh, like, we're just really tying this in across the world, huh? Like, we're doubling down. You can't go anywhere. And if you do, we're going to tax you and follow you and make sure where you're at. What's this? As a part of the city's efforts to manage tourism, Barongo made clear his Sunday news conference that visitors will be expected to adhere to certain guidelines. There will be continuous conditions attached to obtain priority bookings and discounts, he said. You can't come in your swimming suit. You can't jump from a bridge or get drunk. Whoever comes must respect the city. And we will track you in your phone to do
Swimming
so.
suit is disrespectful?
Well, sir, you can keep your sea anals to yourself.
Wow.
So there's that.
Glad we're making a happy home here, babe.
There's that. Yeah. I mean, we're soon not going to be able to leave the country anyways, or leave state lines. Yeah. So, authoritarian states and just around the world, we're going down to it. This next one, speaking of tracking an authoritarian, yeah, you can play it.
To report an unvaccinated coworker. Someone on the internet said they do it for a bag of flamin' hot Cheetos. So here's the thing. Soon, there's going to be a federal vaccination mandate for all companies that employ more than 100
This is obviously right when
people.
Biden
But
announced
OSHA,
that.
the agency responsible for enforcing workplace safety, has fewer than 2,000 inspectors across the country. Now listen to this.
And there's, 8 or 9 million workplaces, so you can do the math.
That's a former OSHA enforcement director that my colleague Andrea Hsu talked to this week. So what's OSHA going to do? Well,
If an employee files a complaint and if they allege a serious hazard, then OSHA wants to get out there as soon as possible to investigate the complaint.
and if a company isn't complying, they can be charged up to $13,600 or 10 times more than that for repeated violations. Slightly more expensive than a bag of hot Cheetos. What would it take
So you can
to
pause that
report
now.
an
So
unvac-
this is another fantastic reporting from NPR. So this was right around when the vaccine mandate thing was coming out. And to me, it's the concern necessarily isn't the obviously the concern is the mandates and forcing people to do things to survive and work and all those things, particularly when the numbers and stats just don't match up. But I think it's the normalizing of stuff like this. What literally the title is, what would you turn in an unvaccinated coworker? And what would it take for you to do that? Like what is this? We're going down the road of, we're just turning to North Korea. Like, I finished that Yeonmi Park book, and people, can talk shit about it, whatever. But man, they do think it's been, I feel like it's fairly confirmed that like that's something they do there is you have to tell on your neighbor, on your this, that, whatever. And you have to be, well, if they're doing something wrong, we expect you to police your neighbors, essentially. Sounds awfully familiar to another or multiple different historic crime, like egregious crimes on humanity throughout the years.
Yeah.
And just the normalizing of, what would you do? How much would it take you to turn in your coworker or family member or neighbor that wasn't following the rules.
I'm not gonna lie. I was having a real hard time even paying attention to anything she was saying. I was just wondering if you put red in front of her, if she'd charge.
Dude, yeah, she had a big old nose ring, but like, this is the reporting we're doing, like with your cat on the counter and a flaming hot bag of Cheetos. First of all, who the fuck lets their cats on the counter? You dirty bitch! Like, why would you do that? That's gross. Like, yeah.
Maybe she was trying to get toxoplasmosis so she could be more aggressive. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can trust anybody that like allows their animals just to climb all over their kitchen counters. Like, I get it. Cats are going to do what the fuck they want because cats don't give a damn. And we have a fun animal story to close off today too. But come on. Like, what? I think that's the biggest thing that blows my mind here is looking at the multiple different layers of this, of all the reporting and stuff we've seen. Is it's normalizing things that shouldn't be normal.
Yeah.
And it's desensitizing. You want to complain about your kids playing bloody video games or what? Like, this is a bloody video game for adults. What would it take for you to turn in your neighbor who wasn't following the rules? Who's not being a good neighbor to you?
Yeah, moral of the story, live out in the country so you don't have neighbors.
Yeah, I don't know. But that was so we'll get into the real quick, and we can kind of start wrapping this up in a sense. But there's some numbers and some fun things that were happening. So
here, hold on. I'm gonna be.
You're gonna be okay.
Yeah, no, you can keep going. I'll come back to this. I just definitely want to add to this.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll take a quick break because this is where it gets. All right. So, obviously, just recently, the FDA has approved the vaccines for kids ages 5 to 11. And as long as the CDC clears it, they could start giving those out. So, it makes the shots available, as this article says, on CNBC. And I pulled all of these articles up for anybody watching the show or listening from quote unquote reputable news sources. So 28 million kids could be, available to 28 million kids. So there's some interesting numbers that we've discussed, and we've never really fully discussed this on the podcast, so I won't get too crazy into it, but it ties all back into the perception and understanding and references. And I don't mean references as like people or websites or things, but like looking critically at what you're seeing, the news you're seeing, the information that's being presented to you, and, dissecting that and really understanding it and making sure that the way you're looking at it, you don't just take it at face value. You don't just take it right off the bat and go, okay, yeah, that's what it is. It's really kind of putting it through a processor and going, okay, what does this really mean? Are they trying to say something that they're not actually saying, but they're using the right words to make me think something? You know what I mean? Because it's propaganda. They're good. They've been practicing it for a long time. So if you look at the next one, that was just really the title. I wasn't really getting the article, but yeah. So we've talked about how the efficacy of the vaccines. I think we've touched on it very briefly. That it's kind of, after a while, it reduces. So this isn't a one and done vaccine. Like, they've been throwing out booster shots and whatnot for certain people. So this article kind of fits into that category very well. So if you scroll down just a little bit there, a little bit more. Here we go. This is why I picked this article, because I found this interesting. So it says in this like little subtitle, the Pfizer vaccine's effectiveness in preventing severe COVID-19 wanes over time, but Moderna's does not. Sounds pretty good for Moderna, right? Okay. So then they have a little chart there where it has Pfizer BioNTech, 14 to 120 days since fully vaccinated, 91% efficacy, and 120 days plus since fully vaccinated. Sounds like some, right? Those vague wording, 120 plus days. So is that just like right at 120? Is it 121?
Yeah.
Is it 150?
And then
Is it 500?
And where does that percentage go at,
Right. So down. Yeah. So it goes
150 days or 180 days?
right. So they have 14 to 120 days, 91% for Pfizer, 93% for Moderna. The next one, 120 days plus. So vague. Pfizer's at 77%, Moderna's at 92%. So 120 days, Moderna's still solid. Okay, cool. 120 days. That's what, 4 months?
Oh.
So 4 months. Okay. What about 6 to 8 to, a year? So if you scroll down a little bit more, there it is. Moderna's analysis showed that participants who had received their first dose more recently, a median of 8 months ago, compared to a median of 13 months ago, were 36% less likely to become infected with COVID-19. So that was the one that didn't wane at all, right? No reduction. Except they just said we're 36% less likely to become infected from 8 months to a median of 13 months. So I don't know what happened in that 4 to 8 month window, but they just said right there, 8 to 13 months, it was a 36% drop. So does that mean it was at 60 now? Or what was the drop between 4 to 8 months? I don't know. I'm not trying to particularly pick apart all these facts, but you see the way these things are written, it can be so confusing for people to see. And unless you really write all these facts and numbers down and track it all, most people aren't even going to read this far into it. They're going to see, Pfizer drops 20% in the first 4 months. Moderna doesn't drop at all. Man, that Moderna one must be good. And then a couple paragraphs later in the same article, they say, well, Moderna 8 to 13 months, there's a 36% drop. What? You just told me it didn't drop at all. Look at these facts. What's, so it's just I don't necessarily want to particularly get on all of the details of this, because especially with this, there's so many statistical details and questions and different things going on. Nobody can really know perfect, but it's just the point of what the fuck is going on. Even these are even there's just so much. I don't want to. It's not misinformation or different disinformation. It's just there's so much information out there. The way it's worded can really change everything. So unless you have a full view of what's going on, it's probably best to not, hold on to it too dearly. So if we go to the next one. Yeah.
When are they supposed to authorize this? Because we already have schedules at work. They're looking for volunteers for these COVID-19 vaccines for ages 5 to 11.
As far as I know, FDA, I don't know if the CDC's approved it yet. They may have.
I mean, because these clinics are scheduled in 2 weeks.
Starting. Yeah, I don't know if the CDC has approved it, but I know the FDA has. When did this article come out?
This was the 29th, I think. October 29th.
Yeah, it was October 29th. So I think they're expecting the CDC to sign off on it.
Where I work, they're very much expecting it because they have schedules.
Yeah. So since we're discussing the CDC, I want to throw some numbers out for some people. And this is all pulled from the CDC website. Just some interesting points to consider. So this chart we have up here, this is, you see the darker blue boxes. That is deaths from COVID. Sorry. False. Back up. That's deaths total in that age group from January 1st of 2020, so quote unquote start of the pandemic, to now. So we have to consider when looking at this table, and there's a bar graph and a line graph that goes along with it. Looking at this table, this is almost 2 years worth of deaths in the United States total. The small blue boxes is COVID. And the line, which is off the other side of the graph, so it's on a different axis essentially, is influenza. So a couple of things you can glean from this right off the bat is, well, obviously, your chances of death in general, because it's by age group, it's 1 to 4, 5 to 14. I don't know why that under one's in there. 15 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 40, 40, and so on, up to 85 plus. So obviously, your chances of death as you get older are greater because, we're all going to die. And as you get old, you die. But there's some interesting things in here that there's 2 different groups I want to touch on because obviously, as you're older, it's been widely known COVID affects the elderly and, the it's like comorbidities or whatever. Yeah. So if you have comorbidities, overweight, if you're old, those are your biggest pain points with COVID. So, but there's a couple groups I want to look at. One is obviously the 5 to 14, right? Because that's what they just got approved for the vaccines. So if you hover over the 5 to 14-year-olds, so in the last almost 2 years, 177 5 to 14-year-olds have died from COVID. 177. 480 have died from the flu. 10,030 are total deaths. So to put that into perspective, in the 2019 census, did I write that down? Oh yeah, I did. So there are, in the 5 to 14-year-old age group, 41 million people 5 to 14 years old. 177 died from COVID in 2 years. 400 from flu and 10,000 from other stuff. So kind of going back to what would I do with that money? Let's figure out why 10,000 5 to 14-year-olds are dying a year. Because it sure as fuck ain't COVID. But we're worried about getting vaccines in their arms. Why? I don't know.
Well, because like we've talked about before, the potential long-term side effects that COVID could.
Yeah, but we don't even know what those are. It could. It could not be at all.
No, I agree.
It could make them geniuses.
But
it could turn them into
that
fucking
makes sense.
Superman.
I mean, it doesn't make sense for me. My kid's not getting it. I'm not getting it. But I can see that that's why they would be pushing it.
Well, so I want to tie this all back into.
Then that's what we should be spending the money on.
Right.
Is researching.
Is research.
The long-term whole COVID, and if that truly does reduce the long-term symptoms or reduce, the ability for you to even catch it. So, or if you catch it, reduce the long-term whole.
Right. There's so many stats here, but it seems to be, get the vaccine, you need to get your kids the vaccine. Everyone needs to get the vaccine. Well, once the efficacy starts waning, well, now you gotta get the booster. You gotta get the booster. Well, hold on. Like, let's look at these things. Let's talk about these things because it doesn't make any sense. 177 kids died of COVID. 10,000 of them died from something else. I don't see that being a huge concern for everybody.
Well, and like you said, more died from influenza, so why wouldn't that be of a greater concern?
Almost, yeah. More than twice as many died from the flu. What? So it's about putting it in perspective. And then I would get the vaccine if we knew if you got the vaccine, you couldn't pass it along. Because that's just not the truth.
It's certainly not.
Certainly not. There's been some studies I've seen that show that actually if you have the vaccine, you're more likely to spread it. But we won't get into all that because there's a lot of, gray areas in there too. But it's been established. You get the vaccine. Doesn't mean you're going to survive it. Doesn't mean you're going to not pass it on.
Do you think they might be more likely to spread it because they maybe take more risks?
Maybe. And there is some data too. We have a table that shows like the age, like that 18 to 30-year-old group has much higher case percentage, which makes sense because they're out there like,
yeah,
like I'm not going to die. Like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go do what I want. And that's that's what teenagers do anyways. But so that would it struck me that like in the cases, I think I might have this number up on one of these tables, but so out of those 5 to 14-year-olds, that 177 of them died from COVID. over 3.5 million have been tested positive for cases of COVID. So that brings you can do the math, to a 0.005%. Not 5%, not 0.5, 0.005% mortality rate. Why are we so concerned about getting 5 to 14-year-olds vaccinated? I get the long haul thing.
Which that's what they should offer. Of that 3 million plus, like how many of them had long-term symptoms?
Yeah, where are those studies? Let me see those studies.
I know that would, provide some weight or validity to this push to get these. It still doesn't, give us a complete safety profile though.
No, it for sure doesn't. But like, there has to be these, just using this group as an example, 5 to 14-year-olds that had COVID right off the rip.
Yeah.
So we'd have almost 2 years worth of data.
Yeah. And if we had that, the long term, like let's say, 0.5% has long term, then you go, well, the risk might not outweigh the benefit at that point.
Or all of them do.
Yeah.
Or, whatever it is, something.
Yeah. And then you go, oh, wow, it does outweigh it. Probably should get the vax.
Yeah. Let's take that $125 million and start putting it into actual research that can benefit us now, instead of finding new fucking viruses to fuck with. Like, what are we doing? So part of this data, if you also look at the 25 to 34-year-old group, which is not statistically, it's factual, that this is the highest group of population in the US. So there are more 25 to 34-year-olds than any other of these age groups. So obviously they have, so I'll put these numbers. So we have roughly 7 million people in the US from the 2019 census that are 25 to 34. 7 million. Of those 7 million, 135,000 of them have died in the last almost 2 years total. 7,000 of those were from COVID, and 1,400 were from the flu. So obviously you can see that they didn't die nearly as much from the flu as they did from COVID, which makes sense because, as we know, as you get older, it's harder to fight COVID than the flu, and flu is, for whatever reason, a higher danger for younger children. So, but even then, 7,000 out of 7 million died from COVID, which brings you, if you do the math, to 0.106% mortality. So, and that's of the cases. Oh, sorry. So 7 million was cases, not total population. Total population is 46 million. Make sure, get that straight. So 7 million 25 to 34-year-olds had tested positive for COVID, which also, how many people have COVID that didn't test positive for it? So if you get COVID as a 25 to 34-year-old, and if you tested positive for COVID as a 25 to 34-year-old, you have a 99.98 or 49% chance of survival. It's close. I think that number is wrong, but more than you have a 0.106% chance of dying from COVID if you test positive for it. So why are we forcing people to get a vaccine that does not prevent them from spreading it to keep their jobs? I don't know.
Yeah, that silence is your answer.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
no one with half a brain and a modicum of common sense has a good answer.
Yeah, so like I said before, there's a lot of things that if it stopped us from transferring it, if it actually stopped you from getting it, if it stopped you from going to the hospital, if it stopped you from dying, okay, I get it. Obviously, if you want to get it, by all means, please do get vaccinated, but you have to understand that you could still spread it. The hospitalization and death rates of vaccinated folks are going up. Particularly, I can imagine if you've had it more than 6 to 10 months ago.
Yeah, and if more people are getting vaccinated, it would only make sense that...
Right, more people are getting it. If it doesn't stop you from getting it, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
But the push and the narrative around it is what is concerning me. Like all of these things we've talked about, how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together concerns me. So I just thought that was interesting data table there. Go click on the next one. There's a couple more here, but we don't have to go too in depth with them. So this was total. So that top line, this is total deaths over the last 2 years. Almost 2 years is 6 million. Now in 2019, if you want to click the next table, next tab, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So I'll say this real quick and it shows up on the next one. But typically I think 2019 there were like an average of like 2.8 million deaths a year. That's just deaths. Just people die, people get hit by buses, all those things. So we are just above.
That's your random example.
I mean, people
people get hit by buses.
They do.
Not like cancer or, they're
well,
just
no,
old
we'll get
or
to that.
like
We're gonna get
random
there.
shit. Just people
But
get
I'm
hit
saying,
by fucking
I'm just
buses,
saying
guys.
everybody.
Okay.
I'm making the point that it's everybody, no matter who died, that got counted in the 6 million. Well, a bus will fuck you up, man. So this was just another table that I don't know why it's. See, this is another thing too. This is CDC site today. So as of right now, so this shows 2 cases by age group. And it says data from 36.5 million cases, and it shows how you break down for the ages. This was pulled today. As of right now, there's over 40 some million cases recorded. What's up with this number? 36 million. It's like they're missing 10 million cases. What? So, another point I'll show you in a little bit is all these data points, they're all different. And they're all like these weird things that you can't make sense out of any of it because none of it is coherent. None of it is cohesive, I guess. It's coherent if you dig down into it, but none of it's like cohesive where it matches up. So these aren't even all the cases. But you look at that 18 to 30 year range, like that's where there's a lot of the people, a lot of the cases. And then for whatever reason, 50 to 64 has a high case rate as well. But if you look at the case rate versus the death, obviously the older you are, the more your chance of, dying from COVID. So it's just, there's a lot of, if you like numbers and stats, there's a lot of numbers and stats. If you really dig into them, even from the CDC's own website, when I started doing it in the beginning, I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we so concerned about this? Like there's a lot of other things out there that I feel like we should be more concerned about. And if you go on to the next tab there, so that just shows population. Obviously, the population is mostly younger in the United States. Just want to put that up there. Those are where I got my 41 million and 46 million for the age groups. So here, off of, once again, the CDC website, this is data from 2019. The cumulative data, number of deaths in 2019 was 2.8 million. Okay. So obviously, I think they haven't tallied everything up from 2020, but I would imagine it's going to be a little higher than this with COVID naturally. And, we won't mention suicides and everything else that were up and the drug overdoses. Because I think we talked about that one episode where like drug overdoses were up like 75% year over year in 2020 and 2021 because of everything going on. Like it was a drastic number. It was like, I want to say it was one of the tens of thousands of people more than typical.
Yeah, because I feel like it was like under 20,000 before, and then it went up to what, like 93,000.
Yeah, it was something crazy. So, but regardless, so you have 2.8 million deaths. That's probably an average. I didn't go back and pull like every single year, whatever, but I would imagine that was probably a pretty average year, 2019. Life expectancy, 78.8 years. So, I mean, once you get to that number, that's pretty good. But once you get to the number, like, sorry, bro, you're going to die from something. Like, I'll be lucky if I get that. I'll be lucky if I get to 78. But what are the leading causes of death? So this, number one, heart disease, 659,000. That's damn near about what COVID has killed, right? I can't remember the total number of COVID deaths now, but it's up there. Heart disease, and then cancer. Cancer, obviously, there's some things you can't do. Obviously, I think there are some cancers that are might have been some lifestyle choices that probably got you there. You know, not saying like I want people to die, but
Yeah.
you know, we all make
Smoking,
choices.
drinking, tanning bed.
Right, fast food, which is probably how much. If you had to put a percentage on the heart disease number, how much of that do you think is just bad life choices?
Considerably higher than just genes.
So you said the heart disease was 659,000 so far right now. Total deaths of COVID is 745,000 for U.S.
Okay, so we're COVID, and that's over 2 years. So this is a year number. 659,000 was just 2019. So COVID, hasn't killed on year. So those numbers, they're little apples and oranges, but overall, but in 2 years, I bet that number is more than 1 million. So I think it's probably safe to say that heart disease has killed more people on average per year than COVID. When you kind of put those numbers together,
Yeah.
two different things, but like, and besides being old, like we should all know at this point, what's the highest risk factor of dying from COVID? Not being healthy. Obesity.
Yeah. Comorbidities, obesity, and poor sugar control.
Right. And then probably vitamin D deficiency after that, which is not being outside in the sun, not like just not being healthy.
Issue too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what kills them.
I just grouped that in with the comorbidities.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But like it's over 75% of COVID deaths have been overweight. And then like 60% of them have like vitamin D deficiencies or something like that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I think that the average comorbidities is like 4.
right. Which typically when you get one, you kind of bring a couple along with you.
Yeah.
You know, not always. You know, we've talked about
Friends like to party, bro.
yeah. Yeah. But you know, and I don't want people get the wrong idea because we've talked in depth. You know, a lot of people like to throw around comorbidities and they always throw diabetes. Well, we've discussed, I don't know if we've ever really discussed it on the podcast, that like type 1 diabetes, which we had an episode on when Cass was, you know, kind of told her story. You know, that's when your pancreas just doesn't work. Well, type 2 diabetes is not whole different thing, but it's kind of a different thing where your pancreas it can't keep up with your body. Well, most of the time, people with type 2 diabetes, it can't keep up with your body because you're overweight. And the pancreas is like, bro, you are putting way too many carbs, French fries and hamburger buns in here. And I just can't process all this shit. When you're eating, you know, 10,000 calories a day of fast food bullshit, like, yeah, your body starts shutting down. So like, but people can have, you know, diabetes or can have, you know, lung issues or different comorbidities but a lot of times, man, you eat fast food every single day, all day long. Guess what? You're going to have a couple comorbidities if you keep at it for a while.
Unless you're Les Parsons or Corey Parsons.
Yeah, but I mean, he also fought cancer. So, and that was, they couldn't really figure out anything specific with that, but he thinks it was from breathing in sawdust for all the years, which he might not be wrong there. But yeah. So, but he, you know, you have to realize that there are nuances to these things. But if I'm looking at these numbers and thinking, what can I do to prevent, you know, my chances of dying, whether it be from COVID or just regular old heart disease?
Probably increase your activity levels, dial on your diet, get some good rest.
Right. So you're saying vaccine's not the top of the list for you?
No. So, and the counter argument to that is, well, that takes time. That's what you'll hear the people that are pushing the vaccine. We need a solution now, is what they're saying.
Yeah, but it's also
and they're
statistically not a solution.
What did we do for 9 months while we waited for the vaccine?
I certainly
in 9
agree.
months you can grow a fucking baby. Like
Right.
you can lose
Yeah, get rid of a
50
baby
pounds.
by running.
Right, like,
Goodbye, food
you can
baby.
do a lot in 9 months.
Yeah, and a little bit goes a long way. So that's the kind of bringing it all back. That's what I constantly have
you
trouble
just circle
with.
back around?
And I saw him circle back around
But
to
you
it.
actually did circle back
I
around.
actually am circling back to it. Yeah. I have a lot of conversations with people, and it takes a long time in order like when I have these certain conversations is I'll disagree with somebody, and then it takes a little bit of asking questions and them going, no, well, what about this? I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to say that the vaccines are bad or that this was a pandemic or, what all these different, I'm saying is look at these different layers of things and looking at them through a lens of just curiosity and what do these numbers mean? What all of these statistics mean? What really drilling down and trying to put all the pieces together, think critically and, think for yourself and not look at these headlines, because headlines and statistics, depending on how they are, reported or written or displayed, can really be tricky.
You mean like a book called How to Lie with Statistics?
Right, which is on Bill Gates' thing, but we won't get into that. So, on that note, if you could play the next video for us, I want people to, because this really ties into everything. Yeah, go ahead and play that. We're gonna listen to all 2 minutes of it. Oh no. They're gonna shut us down. First it was Chevron. Oh no. It's just not playing. That's super weird. They're shutting us down, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yesterday admitted to taking ivermectin.
Ivermectin is something more often used to deworm horses.
CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Rogan telling his 13 million Instagram followers that he was treated with several drugs, and he included ivermectin on the list, a drug used for livestock.
Rogan said the word ivermectin. Yes, that's the deworming medicine made to kill parasites in farm animals.
Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer?
So things are clearly bad, but they're being made even worse by people who have refused to take the vaccine and instead are swallowing horse paste.
Wait a second. He said that he got better because he ate cattle dewormer.
They must know that that's a lie.
You have individuals like Joe Rogan, for example, who don't want to take an experimental vaccine but will take horse dewormer.
Well. If it isn't old horseworm Rogan.
Ivermectin is often used to deworm livestock.
Ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals.
It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Joe Rogan, he came down with COVID. He says he's been taking the livestock dewormer ivermectin.
They lied and said I was taking horse dewormer.
Ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer.
They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor.
You know what doctors say? Doctors say you could take it for humans. Yeah, but not for coronavirus.
He may not have gotten it from the feed supply store, but it's the same compound.
When you have a horse deworming medication that's discouraged by the government, that actually causes some people in this crazed environment we're in to actually want to try it. That's the upside down world we're in with figures like Joe Rogan.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
He also acknowledged taking a controversial treatment designed for animals.
Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm not going to get on if ivermectin is, well, at least because I'm not a doctor. I know these things, but tying that all in is like you can think what you want about Joe Rogan, but you can't tell me all those clips they weren't trying to frame that as horse dewormer, which it has been used to treat like billions of people.
4+ billion.
For multiple different things. People.
Not animals. People.
Yeah, also animals, but guess what? What do you give your dog? Okay, I know a lot of people give their dog fucking Xanax and
all kinds
Tylenol,
of antibiotics,
all types of
fish
antibiotics.
Yeah.
Next time you get the clap, guess what? You're taking some dog fucking whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's the way people use their words the way some people use their words, the way some of these outlets use their words is very intentional. Most people are just talking. Like most time we're sitting here, just bullshit, and just we could probably say a lot of stupid things, but give us the room, like we've said from the beginning. Give me the room to explain what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But when you're used to be a big news channel, you can't tell me that stuff wasn't on the prompter, that they weren't intentionally doing that.
Well, I mean, very intentionally doing it.
Right. So that's the struggle I have. But you have to understand where you're getting your news from, because like I said from the beginning, this is not news. I just like to bring up topics and things that go, hey, you check it out yourself. But
yeah, and so I will speak to what you said you won't speak to.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah,
because I'm not a physician, but I am a provider, and so I've got prescriptive authority. I have a DEA license. I have a extra special license on my DEA license, and I do treat people for COVID, and I have treated them very successfully. I think my biggest thing is, for me, it's always a risk versus benefit, and so I constantly consider a safety profile. And so, you look at all these other countries that have successfully used ivermectin, Mexico, India, even conservative Japan has begun to adopt ivermectin as they looked at Africa when they were giving the countries that gave it not for COVID, and they saw that they had far less COVID cases than they did the countries that did not give it. And so you have to go, well, this is interesting. And if you look at the side effect profile, it's virtually non-existent. It's not like people are overdosing left and right on this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, its safety profile is extremely high. So
or at all.
Even if it doesn't work, wouldn't it be better to try something that you're probably not going to get side effects for? And probably it's a similar, maybe a far less risk profile than the vaccine, seeing as how we have longitudinal studies on this, and it's been used successfully for 40 plus years,
right,
on different on other viruses, to at least try that. Instead of, people would go places and they would say, well, I have COVID, what are we going to do for this? And they would hardly give them anything. They'd say, Tylenol, go home, don't do anything. And so I'll just say, man, I've treated probably 80 people very, very successfully. And with, high dose vitamin D is something, in my opinion, that's very good. There's plenty of studies that support it. For a short period of time, you can do extremely high doses. You could do, there's some studies showing up to 50,000 units a day for a short period of time. Then zinc, some sort of an ionophore, like quercetin or turmeric. And then you want to think, if this thing progresses to respiratory, maybe in advance or prophylactically, we should treat with some doxycycline and ivermectin. And I have successfully used all those to just absolutely treat it very early on, outpatient, controlled setting, and the varying age groups, older people, 50, 60, even 70, with lots of comorbidities, congestive heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, asthma, diabetes, all these things. And everyone lived. And it's just very bizarre to me, man, that like empirically there's some evidence. I've tried to read the evidence against it, and it's not overwhelmingly against it. Anecdotally, I've seen it with my own eyes. It was extremely successful. The Ohio Department of Health kind of dove into what I was doing for a little while there, and they were very surprised. Oh, wow, this worked. Like, maybe we should recommend this. But there's just, I don't understand why we're not willing to consider it. Like, there's so many off-label medications that we use that don't have a safe profile. We're completely willing to use them,
and they're off-label until they're not.
Yeah, and these psychiatric medications that we use for sleep, way higher profile, but we still use them for sleep. These blood pressure medications that we use for anxiety, these antihistamines we use for anxiety, all kinds of off-label uses, and all of a sudden somehow we're going to use this off label, and it's completely demonized, even though there's overwhelming studies and empirical data that says that it works. And like I said, even at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, why not try something that you know is unbelievably safe?
And that's where I come back, because like I said, I don't know all the, health stuff behind it, but if it's safe, if there's a group of people out there saying, doctors, there's plenty of them out there that are saying it does work anecdotally, then.
And empirically, there's studies.
Well, right. So, all right, well, let's take that $125 million. And if you are so certain that this horse-based drug shouldn't be taken, put a study out there and prove it.
I think they're doing.
I sure hope so.
A couple. So I think there's one in like South Carolina
But do the study.
Yeah.
So then we can say, okay, because you know what the funniest thing is, like anybody who's familiar with that Joe Rogan situation, when he talked about it, when they played his video, it's all these little pieces of the puzzle. And a lot of times like it kind of looks almost not petty to a sense, but like you have to take all the pieces of the puzzle and put them together. When they replayed that video on news networks that he put on, so he put like a Instagram video out or whatever, saying, hey, I took ivermectin. But you know what else he took? He took monoclonal antibodies. He took this. He took all these different things. He listed off like 6 to 8 different things. Yeah.
And that's what they focus on.
And that's what they focus on. And did you ever see the clips of when they like replayed his video on?
Did they just cut it down to?
No. They changed the color of it to make him
a filter.
They gave him a filter to look like white and pale and like sickly. Like they changed the actual color of his video to make him look, I'm not going to say they did it to make him look unhealthy, but like the tint of the video was like, he looked like very like unhealthy and like pale. And he's mentioned a couple times, like they even changed the fucking, they gave me a filter, man. Like what the hell? Like, so when you add all of those things up together, it doesn't look good. So how, and then going back to how are we supposed to believe these news channels?
Yeah, that's where I was hoping.
How are we supposed to believe the quote unquote experts? Because these people have, anybody that has some kind of stake in the game like that, they're going to choose their words wisely. And I'm not saying it's like a structured conspiracy. I think some things happen organically bad. You know what I mean? I think some things just end up that way. I don't know if the whole ivermectin thing is because, it's super cheap and anybody can make it, and Merck is coming out with their own, prophylactic. You do your own research on that. But so the next tab, and we're wrapping it up here. If you've never heard about this one, this is just a little fun tidbit to put out there. If you've never heard about Operation Northwoods, this is a thing. You can dig into it. The government has admitted that it's real. And I'll just go ahead and we'll read this real quick. Operation Northwoods. This will probably get us taken down like Alex Jones. Ivermectin right into this.
Yeah.
Was a proposed false flag operation against American citizens that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for the Central Intelligence Agency or other U.S. government operatives to both stage and actually commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blaming them on the Cuban government and using it to justify war against Cuba. The possibilities detailed in the document included in the possible assassination of Cuban immigrants, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, hijacking planes to be shot down or given the appearance of being shot down, blowing up a U.S. ship, and orchestrating violent terrorism in U.S. cities. The proposals were rejected by then President John F. Kennedy. I'm not saying any of this is a conspiracy. I'm not saying that, but the fact that propaganda across the world is alive and well, and if you think it's not used as, and this might be an overused term, psychological warfare for other countries, its citizens.
Old psyops.
Yeah, for anything.
Yeah, not to mention, like, This is the same government we had in 1962. Like,
okay, Joe Biden was a congressman. That I feel like, but it's the whole idea of you have to think about if you don't know somebody, like even an individual. How many times have you gone through your life, like I feel like you really know somebody, and then 10 years, 15, 20 years, or a couple years, whatever, down the road, they do something, you go, holy shit, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to learn that about them. But yet we take, whatever we see on our phones or the TV at face value. Like, what are we doing? Like, these people have money, they have power to lose. And it's not the fact that they have money and power. It's when you're playing the game, you have money and power to lose. And that's when people get real dangerous. But do you want to say anything else on the COVID thing? Because I have one thing to wrap this up. But
I do want to make kind of a note too that, like, I'm not speaking for ivermectin for like acute cases, hospitalized cases or anything like that. Mine was strictly outpatient.
Right.
I'm not saying there's not a place for it in a hospital setting, but I can only attest to that. I can only speak to that.
Right. And I think, at least from what I've gathered from you, it's, hey, we should look at this.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying that it's, like wildly effective. Do I think it's effective from the studies I've read? I do. From what I've seen, do I think it's effective? I do. But I also included other medications too.
Right.
But it goes back to what you were saying. Let's try something that has a unbelievably infinitesimally small side effect profile instead of just going, let's see what happens. Because what if it turns out let's see what it happens leads to long haul COVID? But if we would have done something to kind of address some of these issues early on with ivermectin or, vitamin D, like, then they wouldn't get those.
Right.
So put your $125 million towards that.
Instead of finding new viruses.
Facts.
Fucking facts. On the last note, look at this fact. What do you mean?
You said you were going to end it on a funny.
No, I didn't say funny.
Story. You did it previously.
Did I say funny animal story?
Previously, and I thought it's not going to be about the hippo because that's not funny.
I think it is kind of funny. Yeah. If anybody,
your funny
if
and
you
my funny are different.
Oh, for sure, they are so for sure different. But if anybody should understand fucking how metal and fucked up nature is, it should be people in Africa, right? Because they got lions.
Or Australia.
Or Australia. Yeah. They got just weird fucking giant poisonous bugs and creepy shit. But if you understand how dangerous animals are, it should be somebody in Africa. Because they got all types of big shit that'll fuck you up. Humphrey, the pet hippo, kills owner in South Africa. And I don't know if you've never realized how vicious hippos are. They're some nasty motherfuckers. A farmer in South Africa has been killed by his pet hippopotamus after repeated warnings that it was a wild animal that could never be tamed. Marius Els, 40, an army major, was bitten to death by the 1.2-ton hippo he christened Humphrey and tried to domesticate on a farm in Free State Province. So this hippo was rescued as flooding was happening when it was real young. They guesstimate about 5 months old. And then the people who rescued this hippo didn't have room for it. So this farmer had this 400-acre farm in South Africa and was like, oh, well, I'll take this hippo. He swam with it and was just, really bonded with this hippo. And the last paragraph of this is, earlier this year, Els was photographed riding on the 5-year-old hippo's back. Quote, Humphrey's like a son to me. He's just like a human, he said. There's a relationship between me and Humphrey that's what some people don't understand. They think you can only have a relationship with dogs and cats and domestic animals, but I have a relationship with the most dangerous animal in Africa. Old Humphrey ate that fucker and drug him back into the river. Most animals are not your friends. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say to that. Like, you try to befriend a 1.5 ton behemoth that doesn't have the mental capacity to recognize that you're its friend because it doesn't have friends because it's a fucking animal. It's going to eat you.
Almost sounds like it going back to animals and emotions.
Yeah, it had an emotion.
It
It
had
said,
a lot
I'm
of
hungry,
it
bitch.
had a lot of
and you're the
emotion,
only.
Tony.
Yeah, you look like a tasty beef stick.
Hungry hippos.
Yeah, hungry hippos will eat your ass.
I don't know about you, but my emotions change super fast, Tony. Animals can clearly
For
have
sure.
the same emotions.
I guarantee you this. If she was 1.2 tons, I wouldn't keep her around because she'd fucking eat me.
I get hungry
Yeah.
and pissed off sometimes.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
And when you're hungry and you weigh over a ton, everything that moves looks like a snack. And old Humphrey was probably hungry. Like,
did you see this? Before that, he had chased some people up a tree.
Oh, yeah,
Earlier
because it was
this year,
probably fucking hungry.
He chased a 52-year-old man and his 7-year-old grandson. Spent 2 hours in a tree.
Yeah, what is that? I saw this, and most people are like, "Oh my god, a hippo ate somebody." I'm like, I'm surprised it took us this long to find this story. Like, animals eat shit. That's what they do.
Dude, that last line, chased golfers at a local golf club. Can you imagine?
The fucking hippo.
Dude, a hippo chasing you? That'd be terrifying.
Terrifying.
Dude, you're just trying to wear some pants that typically, if I saw myself in, I'd have to kick my own ass.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a hippo comes along.
Yeah, because do you know where hippos live? In fucking rivers with fucking crocodiles.
And if crocodiles aren't going to mess with you.
Yeah, crocodiles don't fuck with those guys. Those fuckers. Yeah, that had nothing to do with it. All I'm saying is there is no short of fucks or facts to be found on the internet.
No.
What do you got one? You got a closing
This
statement?
says hippos kill more people each year than lions, elephants, leopards, buffalo, and rhinos combined.
Oh my.
Now you know why I'm laughing at the guy who thought he could be fucking buddies with a fucking hippo. Look at these facts.
Nature is metal.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember, check out the website chronic-curiosity.com to join us at the forum, have some fun, interaction, pick you up a comfy t-shirt, or if you just want to support the show and donate, all that is on the website as well. Thank you. Until next time. See ya.